what are the main components of John Cena's wrestling persona? He's a big muscular muscle man. He used to enjoy rapping but doesn't really do that anymore. Most importantly, he wins a lot of wrestling matches and has done for the majority of his WWE career. Cena's decade-long dominance of WWE has been a source of discontent for many fans, and there are arguments both for and against his push. However, it does mean that when Big Match John loses, he loses hard. Despite being a 16-time world champion, a 5-time US champion, and the winner of the Slammy Award for Kiss of the Year in 2012, Cena has lost in devastating fashion quite a few times over the course of his career. From being screwed over in shocking fashion to losing epic bouts on the grandest stage of all, few WWE superstars know how to sell a loss quite as well as Cena. Yes, he may laugh off many defeats the next night on Raw, but there are many occasions when those losses have taken a real toll. Let's take a look at them right now. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are the 10 biggest losses of John Cena's career. Join us! Number 10, SummerSlam 2016 versus AJ Styles. Now, I know what you're thinking. Yes, Cena may have lost to AJ Styles at SummerSlam, but he got revenge at the following Royal Rumble, even taking AJ's WWE Championship for him in the process. However, that loss in August 2016 meant a lot more than it may have seemed at the time. In hindsight, this was a true passing of the torch moment, not just from one superstar to another, but from one style of wrestler to another. Big, muscly John with his enormous body and his army of children lost to flippy little Styles, with his innovative offense and years spent in Impact and New Japan. The match was a phenomenal one, pun intended, as both men hit each other with everything they had. An attitude adjustment couldn't put AJ away, and neither could a Super AA, which is the same as a normal one but from a little bit higher up. A Styles clash and phenomenal forearm were enough to put Cena away and change the face of WWE forever. Then Jon Stewart came out and tried to be friends with the New Day. Number 9, Monday Night Raw, April 2007 versus Shawn Michaels. I've had to consult Jack for this metaphor, so if it doesn't work, direct all abuse to him rather than me. So imagine your friend challenges you to a friendly game of FIFA, or Madden if you're from the United States, I suppose. It starts off casually enough, but you both score 5 times and the game heads to penalties. You might not have cared too much about winning at the start, but now the stakes have been raised through the events of the game itself. I'm reliably informed that this makes sense. Thanks, Jack. Shawn Michaels and John Cena's epic battle on Raw is very much similar, but blown up to a massive degree. What started off as an innocuous TV main event soon became one of the longest and best matches in Raw history. Super Cena was in full effect around this time, having bested Triple H and Michaels in consecutive Mania closing matches. Had Shawn not won the Raw rematch and slowed his momentum, there's no telling where Cena would be by now. He'd probably be 15 feet tall, rampaging through the streets, hurling the severed heads of Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and Goldberg at school buses, and so on. Number 8, SummerSlam 2013 versus Daniel Bryan. This was the match where we discovered John Cena's one true weakness. Don't hit him with 3 finishes in a row, don't get your stablemates to interfere in the match, just charge across the ring and knee him directly in the face. There's an old saying that if you're caught in a shark attack, your best chance of survival is to punch it on the nose. Daniel Bryan used similarly simple advice to take down the jaws of WWE, bopping him right in the face with his knee. It was a strangely indie finish to the match, quite appropriate given the respective backgrounds of both Bryan and Cena. This bout would have been featured higher on this list were it not for the fact that Cena was pushed out of the spotlight afterwards. Yes, he lost to his future brother-in-law and a man half his size, but this was a far more devastating event for Bryan than Cena himself. After the pinfall, Bryan was jumped by special guest referee Triple H, allowing Randy Orton to stroll out and cash in his Money in the Bank contract. What a pair of pricks. Number 7, Money in the Bank 2011 versus CM Punk. Now, before we look at this one properly, fair play to John Cena. He was one half of the last 5-star match under the WWE banner until Gargano versus Almas. He proved, despite "you can't wrestle" chants from the Chicago crowd, that he can wrestle, and do a bloody good job of it too. With that said, he lost, and the stakes were massive. CM Punk won and did so in almost clean fashion, although he did use a teeny tiny distraction from Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis. Then, in a move which has since entered wrestling folklore, he took the WWE Championship and left through the crowd, appearing to run out his contract as champion. Unfortunately, we all know how the angle played out. Punk returned far too early, lost to Triple H, and somehow the whole thing became Triple H versus Kevin Nash. I'm still confused how that happened. But there's no denying that, in terms of the evolution of the wrestling business, this loss was a monumental one for Big Jonathan. In putting over Punk, he lost to the ultimate internet darling, and a man who had been openly critical of WWE's booking policy. In front of the most anti-Cena crowd since, well, another match on this list, he was soundly beaten, shifting the entire wrestling landscape in the process. It can be argued that if it were not for Punk's victory, we wouldn't have seen Daniel Bryan win at WrestleMania 30, and we certainly wouldn't see the current WWE roster populated by superstars like AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and Samoa Joe. Number 6, TLC 2013 versus Randy Orton. Na. Randall Keith. Apologies, I just had to break into song in honor of the first ever undisputed WWE World Heavyweight Champion, Randall Keith Orton. Yes, the last big unification match to take place in WWE saw WWE Champion Randy Orton face World Heavyweight Champion John Cena in a tables, ladders, and chairs match. It's probably the least beloved match on this list, but it makes the grade because of two factors. Firstly, the stakes were obviously very high. Cena doesn't just like to win wrestling matches, he likes to win big wrestling matches. Hence the nickname Big Match John. In losing, he didn't fail to overcome the odds, he failed to live up to his own nickname. Shame on you, Mr. Cena. Secondly, I'm not sure if Cena has ever been beaten in such an inventive way. Orton had clearly done his homework, realizing that Cena's biggest strength is, well, everything. In desperation, he handcuffed his opponent to the bottom rope, a very sound strategy in a match centered around climbing a ladder. Undeterred, Cena detached the rope and decided to climb anyway, only for Orton to pull him back down by simply yanking on the other end of it. It was a huge win for Randy, particularly given Cena's tendency to win ladder-based matches almost by accident, as he did in Money in the Bank 2012 when the briefcase broke free in his big manly hands. Number 5, ECW One Night Stand 2006 versus Rob Van Dam. Before RVD was a primetime UK television star thanks to 5-Star Wrestling, he was an ECW icon, and one of the most popular men on the mid-2000s WWE roster. By this stage of his career, Cena was no stranger to hostile receptions, despite being a big old babyface. But nothing could have prepared him for hatred of the sheer magnitude that faced him here. This is the match that gave birth to the now infamous "If Cena wins, we riot" sign, and also saw John attempt to throw his t-shirt into the crowd, only for fans to return it several times. The background to this bout was simple. RVD had won the Money in the Bank briefcase, and in a move which few superstars have made since, announced the date of his cash-in ahead of time. The match at One Night Stand was a good one, but hardly a classic in terms of in-ring action. It was carried into legendary status, however, by the vociferous ECW faithful, who roared Cena into defeat as much as they did Van Dam to victory. Yes, the win wasn't all clean, with Edge blatantly interfering and Heyman counting the pinfall, but nobody cared. The sheer delight for RVD finally winning the WWE Championship was huge, as was the delight at Cena's misfortune. Poor old John. Number 4, New Year's Revolution 2006 versus Edge. We've all been there, a hard grind at work or school full of boredom, frustration, and existential anguish. The end of the day approaches only for someone or something to keep you back for an extra half an hour, or in John Cena's case, take your hard-earned WWE Championship. New Year's Revolution 2006 saw one of the most infamous Elimination Chamber matches of all time. Not for the action inside the structure, but for the events following the match. Cena battled his way bravely through 5 other men, including my favourite tag team, the Masters of Cool, and lay in the ring an exhausted, bloody mess. Unfortunately for him, Vince McMahon was on hand to render all that hard work absolutely pointless. In a move which shocked the entire WWE universe, or as they were known back then, fans, he announced that Edge was cashing in his Money in the Bank contract right there and then. Cena put up a decent fight considering he was medically half dead by this point, but it wasn't enough to stop the rated R superstar picking up the biggest win of his career. So next time you have to photocopy an extra document or finish the last page of that essay, just think it could be worse. You could be a wealthy, attractive, world-traveled WWE superstar, and you could have just lost your pretend championship in a pretend fight against a pretend opponent. It's heartbreaking, really. Number 3, WrestleMania 27 versus The Miz. The Miz has historically occupied a position on the WWE roster known as John Cena's personal punching bag. Whenever John needs a cowardly villain to pummel, he need look no further than Mr. Mike. A microwave-ready heel capable of losing a respectable match in a matter of minutes. It's therefore easy to forget that one of the biggest losses of John Cena's career came against The Miz, on the grandest stage of them all, no less. So why are we so quick to overlook the main event of WrestleMania 27? It may have something to do with the fact that Cena didn't really lose to The Miz. Yes, in literal terms he did, but the real antagonist here was none other than Hollywood Dwayne himself, The Rock. In the biggest injustice against Cena since, well, that loss to RVD, he was the victim of blatant interference. The Rock was supposedly the host of WrestleMania 27, but flagrantly involved himself in the main event to nail Cena with a rock bottom and deal him the biggest loss of his career. Well, at least until the following year. Number 2, WrestleMania 28 versus The Rock. In terms of losing to a big opponent in a big match on a big stage, there's no more devastating loss for John Cena than the main event of WrestleMania 28. In a main event 1 year in the making, Cena headed into Sun Life Stadium determined to prove that he was on the right path. There was no way an older, over-the-hill actor like The Rock could beat the most dedicated company man in professional wrestling. Not a chance. Cena lost after attempting to mock the People's Elbow, which infuriated The Rock to such a degree that he sprang to his feet and delivered a thunderous rock bottom. It was a seismic result, one which led to scores of grown men taunting small children both in the stadium and on social media. Ha ha ha, your hero's dead, they said, reinforcing the notion that wrestling shouldn't be for children, it should be an incredibly serious form of entertainment catering to adults, like us. Cena would ultimately get his revenge the following year, but there's no escaping the image of him sitting on the WrestleMania 28 ramp, coming to terms with the fact that he just lost one of the biggest dream matches in professional wrestling history. Number 1, SummerSlam 2014 versus Brock Lesnar. A dog versus a tiger, a shark versus a newborn seal, a small immobile cube of raw meat versus a starving hyena. All of these matchups would result in a closer fight than the main event of SummerSlam 2014, John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. I imagine when you started watching this list, you may have suspected that this match would be number 1. If you didn't, you might not have seen it, and I'd recommend you check it out immediately after this video is finished. Cena doesn't just lose to Lesnar, he gets eviscerated. Usually an opponent has to really go the extra mile to beat Cena, whether it be via in-ring expertise or heelish rule bending, but Brock didn't really change up his game plan at all. In fact, he simplified it, simply nailing John with suplex after suplex after suplex, with a few F5s thrown in for good measure. The street-snapping defeat of Undertaker at WrestleMania 30 may have started Lesnar's unstoppable run, but this victory over Cena was the moment he truly became the final boss of WWE. It's unclear how many years Cena has left in him, but even if he were to wrestle for another decade, it's unlikely that he'd ever suffer a defeat quite as emphatic as this one. So that's our list. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and you can follow me on Twitter here. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.